They say you get used to the silence that comes with death. That's a lie. I've been an ambulance driver for 17 years, and if there's one thing I know for certain, it's this. You never really get used to the quiet that follows someone's final breath. It's the kind of hush that makes your skin prickle, and your thoughts echo in your skull. My name is Tom Halbrook. I work the night shift for the city of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Maybe you've seen my rig ambulance 42 rolling through empty streets while the rest of the world sleeps. Most nights, the job's routine: drunks, falls, the unlucky. But every now and then, the city hands you something you never forget. This is the story of one of those nights. It was late November, the kind of cold that seeps into your bones no matter how many layers you wear. The city was dressed in fog. Streetlights glowed like lanterns in a world gone underwater. We'd just finished a long call a non-emergency transport out to a retirement home. My partner Joe had gone inside to file some paperwork. I stayed with the rig, sipping black coffee from a battered thermos, watching my breath fog up the windshield. That's when the radio crackled. Dispatch to Ambulance 42. Non-emergency pickup, confirmed DOA. Coroners waiting at St. Anthony's. Dead on arrival. The words never get easier, but I'd heard them enough times to know what came next. A quick run to the hospital morgue, load the body, and drive it out to the city morgue on Oak Street. Routine, or so I thought. Joe came jogging back, rubbing his gloved hands together. "Another one?" he asked, already buckling in. I nodded and turned the key. The engine coughed to life. We pulled up at St. Anthony's just after midnight. The hospital parking lot was empty, the only movement coming from the steam billowing out of a nearby vent. A lone security guard nodded as we rolled up to the service entrance. Inside, the fluorescent lights flickered overhead, casting everyone in a jaundiced glow. The coroner, a tired-looking woman named Dr. Pierce, was waiting beside a gurney. On it lay a body bag, zipped tight. "Male, mid-40s, she said, not looking up from her clipboard. "No family yet. Found alone in his apartment. Heart attack, most likely." There's a formality to these things, almost like a dance. Sign here, sign there. Joe and I wheeled the gurney out to the ambulance, the wheels squeaking on the linoleum. We loaded the body in the back, secured it, and slammed the doors. Joe was finishing paperwork up front, so I climbed into the driver's seat alone. The digital clock on the dash blinked 12:27 a.m., the route to Oak Street should have been simpler: straight shot down Main, 3 lefts, and a slow crawl past the cemetery. But the fog was thick now, eating up the city in big wet gulps. Even with the high beams on, I could barely see 10 feet ahead. I drove slow, every sense on alert. Joe was humming softly beside me, some old tune I didn't recognize. The heater ticked, and the radio spat static. That's when things started to feel wrong. It began as a smell sharp and sudden, like burnt hair. Not the antiseptic odor of a hospital, or the lingering metallic tang you sometimes get after a bad call. This was something else. I glanced at Joe, but he didn't seem to notice. Then, from the back of the ambulance, came a sound. Just a soft, irregular tapping like fingernails on metal. I froze. Maybe it was a loose strap, I told myself. Or something shifting as we took a corner. Still, the hairs on my arm stood straight up. Joe turned, his brow furrowed. "You hear that?" he asked. Before I could answer, the tapping turned into scratching, a slow, deliberate scrape against the steel wall. My mouth went dry. Joe unbuckled his seatbelt. "Probably just a rat," he muttered, forcing a laugh. "Old hospitals like St. Anthony's, you know." But there was nothing casual about his voice. He opened the little sliding window between the cab and the patient compartment and shined his flashlight inside, empty. Just the black body bag, lying still. We both let out a nervous chuckle. "See?" I said, my voice higher than usual. "Nothing but nerves and too much coffee." But the smell was getting worse, so strong it made my eyes water. And the fog was so dense now, the world outside the ambulance felt more imagined than real. We drove on in silence, each of us glancing at the rear view more often than usual. Halfway down Main Street, the temperature in the cab plummeted. The heater kept whirring, but I could see my breath clouding in front of me, My hands shook on the wheel. Joe's humming had stopped. His knuckles were white. That's when I saw something in the mirror. Just for a second, movement inside the patient compartment. A shadow, quick and jerky, like someone shifting under a sheet. I hit the brakes. The ambulance screeched to a halt, tires biting into wet pavement. Joe cursed. We both sat there, hearts pounding. "Stay here," I told him, and grabbed the flashlight. I forced myself into the back of the ambulance. The body bag lay exactly where we'd left it. But now it looked wrong. Swollen, as if something inside was pushing against the heavy black plastic. And there were smears on the metal floor, long dark streaks. I reached out to touch the bag, and as my fingers brushed the cold vinyl, something inside shifted violently. The entire bag jerked, as if whatever was inside had tried to sit up. I staggered back, hitting the wall behind me. The flashlight shook in my hand, casting wild shadows. Joe appeared behind me, eyes wide. "Tom, what the hell?" The scratching started again, louder now, more insistent. It was coming from inside the bag. "Get out," I whispered. Now, we both scrambled out of the back, slamming the doors shut. The ambulance rocked gently on its shocks. For a moment, neither of us said anything. "We can't just leave it," Joe finally managed. "We'll get fired." But I wasn't thinking about the job. I was thinking about every story I'd ever heard from old-timers, about dead bodies that weren't ready to be dead, about restless spirits, about curses and things that slip between the cracks of what's supposed to be possible. I made a decision. "We drive," I said. "Straight to Oak Street. Don't stop. Don't look back." Joe nodded, pale as chalk. I got behind the wheel, my hands numb with fear. As soon as I started moving, the ambulance filled with noise, scratching, banging, a horrible low moaning that made my teeth ache. The radio flared to life, spitting static and broken voices, words I couldn't understand. Joe covered his ears, muttering prayers. The smell was suffocating now, like rot and fire mixed together. My eyes watered. The fog pressed against the windows, thick as wool. I drove faster than I should have, desperate to reach the morgue. The banging grew louder, and for a moment, I saw the rear doors bulge outward, as if something inside was trying to break free. We turned onto Oak Street. The city morgue loomed up out of the mist, an old brick building, its windows dark. I skidded to a stop and threw open the back doors. Silence. The body bag lay still. The air was clear again. The temperature returned to normal. Joe and I stared at each other, both of us shaking. Together, we unloaded the gurney. The bag felt heavier than before, and for a moment, I thought I saw a handprint, fresh and wet, press up from inside. But then it was gone. We wheeled the body into the morgue, where a night attendant waited. He took one look at our faces and shook his head. "You saw it, didn't you?" he said quietly. "They all do, sooner or later." I didn't answer. There was nothing to say. We drove back in silence. Joe quit a week later. I stayed on, but I never worked another night shift. Some people say the dead can't hurt you, but I know better. Sometimes, the dead just want one last ride, and sometimes, they don't ride alone.